started recording. Okay, thank you, Shana, for again. I'm just making on record so that so Shana reminded us. Otherwise, we were just forgetting. So here what we are doing is that select top one. So if I just again, as I mentioned that, as I showed that, if I just do that, don't do that, it's not giving that same error it was giving before. But it says that order by is invalid unless you have the top or you have offset or you have something over there. So when we introduce this top one over here, top one number from a student where order by balance. So now it will just bring up one value at a time. So if I just, and again, it will take one value at a time from that one. So order by. So it will go to first, then second, then third, then fourth, then fifth, and then whatever. And it will just return with the student number and the marks over there. So if it has run all the queries, sorry, because I did not select that. So it's running that query, because it's a long queries, log data. Even canceling is taking some time out. Right. So let's do that. If it is query cancelled, wonderful. Now, if I just come here and if I run that. So see here, it is just being mentioning that this is student number and the final mark 0, where, it says that, top one is that using that one. Let me just see that if it is returning the right final mark for 3868247. So let me just select everything from there. I just want to make sure that values are coming right. Select asterisk from course student. Okay, so I just want to see that. Oh yeah, so we have got a lot of a student with 0 marks, 0 finally. So again, yes, it's just mentioning right one, right? So that's basically top one, and it is just returning that one. Now let's come back to that example that we talked about, 1-to-1, example 8. And in that example 8 also we'll talk about first A, because we will talk about subquery in select list. And it will be 1-to-1 relationship, right? So now see that 1-to-1 relationship. If I run that, select e.number, e.school code, right? And what we want to do, we would like to just bring something as a subquery here, and we'll say select p.first name, first name plus, and you see here, we are trying to concatenate it with a space, single space, plus p.last name from person P, where p.number is equal to p.number as employee name from employee, right, where p.location equal to 4A17. Now see here, what we are doing, we are using subquery in select 1-to-1 relationship that we talked about in the slides as well. So if I just come here and run that one, So what it is doing, it's taking out the number and school code and also name, first name. And you see the first name is coming up as a collection or as a string, combining the first name and the last name from person table. So from person table, we have got a first name and the last name over there, and it just goes there, tries to find out the first name and last name, and brings them up over here with making a string over here, and it's just making a string. And after making a string, that is, that would really make matter over here. So you see that employee name is coming up as that from employee. So that is typically, a subquery basically running, but it has to have one-to-one relationship. But when there is a one-to-many relationship, that will make our example 8b. So if I say, for example, subquery in select list, but the relationship is one to many. You remember we have talked about one to many. Now, what is that explanation? In one to many relationship, for example, person to payment, person to payment is a one to many relationship because one person can make multiple payment. So we start with what? Start with the person table. Start with person table will fail, will fail because subquery returns multiple values. So now what we'll do? So what we'll do is that we'll start with the payment, because payment will be returning one value. So look at that. P dot first name, P dot last name, and now here comes the query. Select amount from payment where student number is equal to P dot number. So again, it will from inside from person P, right? From person P where P dot number in. Now it should be inside what? Select student number from payment where amount is greater than 1,000. That's a little bit of complex one, but it will start with the payment because it will be just returning one value. Let's run that one. Oh, subquery return more than one value. So look at that. What it is happening is that again, it is failing because now what we are doing, that if we'll start with a person table, so we have started with what? So we have just seen that over here the person table is returning, so returning, so the multiple values. So if we have these multiple values, then we might not be able to just return that. Now if we just make starting with the payment table, as we have just talked about, that if you start with the payment table, it will definitely try to run, because payment to relationship is definitely one that is working fine, right? So let me just run that one. So in this B, if I just come here and I make it example 8C rather, so that one is the above one is failing. So if I say at one C, start with the payment table, it works. Why? Because subquery returns one person per payment, right? So now if I just come here and I say select, and now here we are writing another query. Select first name from person where number equal to pay dot student number, right? And comma, pay dot student number. And then what we'll do, look at that. Write another query, select last name from person, where number is equal to pay dot student number, right? Student number. And then we want pay amount, pay dot amount. We will have a pay alias in the end. That's why it is giving error. From payment, pay, where pay dot amount is greater than 1000. Right? So now it will return one value at a time, and it should now return one value at a time. Right? So actually, when we were just doing that from the person, like the main query was running from the person. If you look at that, it was running from the person. So it was creating error because person might return multiple values. But if we start with the payment table, we take the payment as the first or the main outer table, it will not produce an error because payment table will be returning a single value at all the times. It will be returning the single values all the times. Right? So now let's do something interesting over here. The last example before we'll have that practice question. If you remember, that is practice question that we'll talk about. But I'll just give example 8D. Let's talk about D. Complex one. And complex example Y, one to many, and column many to one. If that is table, so look at that. What we are doing, find all software in labs, starting with lab software. Starting with lab software. Now let's do that. And you're writing multiple queries over here. So let's see that. Select lab software, LS, where, or rather before lab software, we'll start with one query. Select product from software. So you see that? From software, where unique ID equal to ls dot software unique ID, right? T to be small. Software ls dot software unique ID, right? And then comma. What else we want? We want another query. Select number from room number or room, where ID is equal to ls dot room ID. Now, both of these should come from where? From lab software. That is ls. And where ls dot room ID in. Now, find out that in that subquery, ls dot room ID should be equal to select ID from room, where campus code equal to D, again Dune campus, and is lab equal to 1. So it's a bit of complex, multi to many to many, one to many, many to one. And we are trying to just, adjust those queries over here. And to adjust those queries, what we are doing, we are just, running that one. So let's run that one. It says we have just not given the column name, the no column name, publisher, Microsoft. So the first one, select product from store, where unique ID is equal to ls.software ID. We have not named it anything. So if I just come here and if I just say as for example, software. Right. And now let's run that one. I'll just do that new line. Right. So let's run that. So software, publisher, Microsoft. 1C9, 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 1C26. So it is just creating all those softwares from the labs, right? So that is all those softwares from the lab. It will just, come up with that one. Wonderful. So that's actually doing what? It just, we have started with the main one is the lab software that we have just taken, lab software. So that is, lab software will be returning one value, unique software ID will just return that one, product from software ID. So there's, and again, we have just, I just mentioned that there is a practice question that we'll do towards the end. But right now what we are doing, so this is the practice file for today. And again, we'll just continue with our PowerPoint slide. First of all, let me just save this SQL query one with some name. We have got code snippets. No, it should be in here. Codes. And again, it's our week 9. So I'll say week 9 part 1 because we might have another part today. And again, that as I mentioned, we will be just using the another example that we will just do, but that we'll do later on. So now let's start over this PowerPoint because we had to discuss summary query and subqueries in a later much detail, and we'll just quickly have a cover up. So objective of this is code select statement that require any language elements presented in this chapter. Now it describes summary queries, describe differences between having clause and the where clause. This is very important. Describe the use of the with rollup and with cube. These are very nice operators with rollup and with cube that will really make our queries to summarize some of the rows. And after summarizing, they will be just returning the or producing the results for a particular situation. So describe the use of with rollup and with cube, describe the use of grouping sets operator, describe the use of the over clause. That is something that we'll just do in this one. The syntax of aggregate functions. So we know that aggregate functions work like this. And we have worked on these aggregate functions a lot of time before. And we know that average, we can have average of all or distinct values, and the expression comes max, count static. These are all aggregate functions. A summary query that counts unpaid invoices and calculates the total due. Now it is basically here that it is a summary query. What is a summary query? That would summarize a lot of if you look at that, it is, sum is taken at invoice total minus payment total minus credit total. You see that? And it does what? From invoices, it just goes and it just prints out that one. So if I just come here and I will create another file for this one now in my here, I'll just start a new query because, I'll just keep that as a part 2. So part 1 is closed. So if I just come here and I write this query, select count static and number of invoices, and if I run that one, oh, it's not this same table. Which table we are using here? I just invoices. Which table we are generally using in our database? Which database we are using? It was not. Do you remember which one we use for our programs? Shana, do you remember that which database we use for this invoices and something? Was it Northwind? No. Okay, let me see that. Bookstore, NFO Teams, SIS. Let me see that. There is an invoice table, by the way. I just run that here. Okay, it means that it's something different. Let me just check that one. Okay, if I close this, if something happened to my SQL Server Management Studio, because at times it does this kind of things. It's coming up from SIS and it's this is invoice total. Do you guys remember which database we use for that? I'm just not remembering that one. Which let me just see that. Have we used this invoices before? I think I remember we have used that before. Let me just see that. I think we have used that in maybe week 2, part 2. Yes, we have used that over here. I think used invoice number from interesting. Which was the database that we used there? Okay, it was there. Week 3, part 1. We were using COVID-19 here, or like COVID-19 here. And week 4, part 1, we used SIS for course offering and all those things last time for join and everything. Yes. And what about week 5? Again, use this SIS. I think we are using this SIS continuously. Hmm. Okay. Let me close that. We don't have invoices table here, right? So let me just say, can you guys find out which table we were using for these? Like, we have used invoices before, right? Transaction date and amount, it has got all these one. Let me have a quick view of that. Which one are you using? Mhm. Let me find out that one. Okay. In the meantime, why not? Okay. This book. In the meantime, I would like you guys to just go with this question, which is here and which was in our. Okay. Are you guys everyone here? Can I have a quick chat message from everyone? Yes or something, because I'm just trying to find out which. We'll just see that which database we have. I don't see any message from anyone, by the way. Yes, Shana, thank you very much. Okay, I'd like you guys to just maybe try to come up with a solution here. Um, Find all the courses which are offered in CPA program, show course names, campus, and semester for which course is offered. You can use these SIS tables: program course, and campus. And you have this, for example, campus, Dune, course, semester. So you have to find out all in CPA program. Show course names, campus, semester for which. So can you guys try it out on Shana? You have just mentioned this over here. So try using a join, maybe in our same file that we were using. You can just try out this join first of all. And after join, you can just try out the use subquery, and both of them should have the same result. And I'll just share the solution with you. Let me just first of all look into that summary queries which we are using, right? So Shana, just try that out and I'll discuss the solution later on. And I would like everyone to, Samprit, you as well, Smith Kumar, Yash, Begum, and Hitesh. I would like all of you to just, try to come up with a solution of this question. In the meantime, I'll just, find that out. Okay, Hitesh, yes. So try that out and let me know if I'll discuss the solution once I'll see the solution from you guys. I would like to see your solutions before you can paste your solution over here, your query on the chat window, and then we'll just, talk about a model solution here. Oh, that is AP. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. I don't have that AP table. I'll just bring that problems. Yeah, so I have the database and I'm waiting for your solutions first of all. And then I would start talking about something. Yes, anyone came up with a solution? I would be happy to see anyone just tried that one out. Okay, Shana, just try that out and let me know because I'll share the solution later on. But looks like or more people are trying other than Shahana. I would like to see some of the other solutions as well. Okay, Hitesh, wonderful. I'm waiting for your. Okay, I'm just giving 3 to 4 minutes more, and then I'll just start. And again, I'll share the solution with those guys who are trying. I'll discuss the solution with them. I'll share it with them. All right. So Shahana and Hitesh, you can send me personal private message of your solution, and I would definitely would like to discuss solution with you. Don't worry, right? So you guys have tried, and whatever you have come up with, you can share it with me, and I'll be happy to have discussion with you. Okay, so I'm just opening up that, and then again, I'll share the database. I think I've shared that somewhere with you. It's actually AP database, AP that we'll be using. Yeah. So, I would be using for this one, I would be using AP, use AP, right? So if I run both of the commands, of course, it will now run, and I'll talk about that one. But if you do not have the AP database, so I will be sharing another, I'll share the file over here, and you can access that, and you can run that to have AP file installed into your this one. So I'm just sending that create AP file. This is SQL file, and you run its all all code, and you will get that you'll create the database inside your machine. It's here, and I'll share that on the database. It's in the databases of course shell as well, right? So Shana, and let me know, Hitesh, if you guys get that one, the file, and you run that, and run as a SQL query, and it should produce this AP database into your machine. Right? I was missing this AP database, and this is actually these commands are using AP. Let me know when you guys install that and have ready with this one, so that we can start talking about that, because you are following me along. So I'd like to follow with you. You got it? Like you created that database AP, Ritesh, and okay, wonderful. You created that one, wonderful. And how about you, Shahana? If you were able to install that one, like create the database by running the script. Okay, wonderful. So now you see that now this is the summary query that we're talking about. This is first of the summary query. If you run that one, you will see that it's just counting all the number of invoices, and the sum is basically, it's just, all of those invoices, invoice total minus payment total minus credit total. It just creates that the sum of those values as total due over here, and it goes to invoice number, of course, and where invoice total minus payment total minus credit total is greater than zero. Whosoever has that greater than zero total over here, the sum of them, and just return them. So that is first query that is working on over here. Let me just show you here. So it will return with those values. Now, a summary query with count, static, average, and sum. So select after 9/1/2015 and selection date as selection date. So we are just we are having the result date with after some particular dates as well. So if I just come here and I'll say, for example, I'll say example one for this one, and now let's say example two for the other one, example two, and if I just paste that one, so what it is doing, it is just taking a date and counting number of invoices, average of invoice total as average invoicement, and sum of invoice total, and then it has to have, like, again after that this particular date. So let's run that one. It comes up that after nine, like this one 2015, 114 invoices have been converted. And you see the summary of over there. Average invoice amount is 1879, and total invoice amount is this one. So this is basically just going there and trying to find out all that which is over there. So that's particularly summary amount with count and average and everything. With min and max, if you want to just use the min and max, it can be taken as the totals and all those things. So if I just run that one, it will just using example three. using min and max. I've written down small because that's not really matters here. So now you see that if after that one, count all the number of invoices, the maximum total and the minimum total. Just return these two minimum and maximum totals over here. And look at that. It will just say the number of invoices is 114. The highest invoice total is 37966 and the lowest total is 6.00. Right. So this is quite interesting. It will just, go and find out by using the min and max situation. What is that one? A summary query for non-numeric column. So if there is column is non-numeric, what it will do, you see that min vendor name as first vendor, max vendor name as the last vendor. So you see that it is just, that it's not the numeric values, something that can be used, but they can be calculated like this. So example 4, using non-numeric fields, right? So let's run that one. So min, using the min, right? I should say using min and max with non-numeric fields. So now you see that it will just go to the minimum and the maximum. So it says that, for example, the first vendor over here is minimum means, the in sequence, which is the very beginning one. And then it says that the maximum one is that basically the last vendor. So it just goes to the last vendor name and it finds out that there are 122 vendors over there. Makes sense? So these are making summaries of all those ones. But here what we want to talk about, we'll just talk about something very interesting, roll-up operator and everything, because that will give us the calculation as well. Then how much some of them have that one. So the same query, the summary query with distinct keyword. If you want to have distinct one. Now that's interesting. Whenever the distinct comes up, you know that we are talking about some typical values over there. So let's say example 5, using distinct. So look at that. Select count distinct vendor ID. So not all the vendor ID, just distinct vendor ID as number of vendors. And then, so just give me, like averaging out them, counting as individually and then averaging them out. And that's quite interesting because, what will say that there are 34 different vendors we have, right? And, 34 different types of, and number of invoices 114, like 34 vendors have made 114 or invoices, and then average invoice amount is this one, and the total invoice amount is this one. So this is quite interesting because we are trying to find out distinct vendor, one vendor particular time, and count how many vendors are there, and number of invoices, and the number of invoices. So vendor IDs, whatever vendor IDs are there, which particularly will find out that how many invoices have been made. So it's 114, and then average invoice total, whatever is the total average, and date out invoice date greater than 819 2015. So it's going that. So if I just come here and I say 2025, which might not be a particular date over there, so you see that I won't get any results because 2025 means it does not have any. So if I just come here and I say 20,000 to 2000, like 2000 from 2000, it is just coming up with the same result, right? So that's basically over here. Now, let's go back. The syntax of select statement with group by and having clauses. This is very important. Select list from table source where group by, having, order by. So, we have to just, mention few things. We have to just keep in mind few things that are very important, that which elements or which phrases we can use over the other in a particular situation. Because there might be some particular situations at the particular of time that where you are not able to use order by, or either you are not able to use the, maybe the having or something clause. They have their own requirements. They have their own things. So look at that. Oh, sorry. Look at that. What can be included in the select clause when grouping is used? We can use aggregate function. We can use columns used for grouping. We can expression that result in a constant values. We can use them. Look at that. So here are some that calculate the average invoice amount by vendor. So by vendor, just find out the average amount and give it to me. average amount by vendor. Look at that. Select vendor ID, average invoice total as average invoice amount from invoices, group by vendor ID, and having average invoice total greater than 2000. All those where invoice total is greater than 2000, it will just try to just go there and bring those values and order by average invoice amount descending. So that's typically what it will just bring up all those amounts over here. And look at that. Vendor ID 110 has this one, 72 has this one, 104 has this one, 99 has this one. Make sense, everyone? This is basically what this is typically calculating the individually the invoice amount of every vendor. Now, a summary code that count the number of invoices by vendor and how many number of invoices are there. Of course, 34, we have seen the 34, but let's run that one and it will tell us that what is there. Example 7. Let's run that. Select vendor ID, count as invoice quantity from invoices. So vendor ID and count everything over there. Group by vendor ID. Look at that. 34 has 2 invoice, 37 has 3, 48 has 1. And all of them, this just showing is different. And 95 has 6. 123 has 47. Right? So these are all our vendor IDs that are coming up. All right. A summary code that groups by 2 columns. If you want to group by 2 columns, you'll see that. How does it do that? So 2 columns summary. Now it will come up with the 2 columns. Look at that. So the vendor state, we are getting that. Vendor city, we are getting that. Count as invoice quantity. So count everything as invoice quantity from that. Average invoice total as invoice average. It's coming up over here. From invoices, join vendors. So actually we have to go to the vendors as well, because here we are using these 2 tables. So it will go to the vendor and find and take out that value. And it joins that one. Vendors ID is equal to vendors.vendor ID. And it's grouped by vendor state and city and order by vendor state and city. So that's quite interesting, because this will be doing what? Taking 2 columns and grouping them by the 2 columns. Right? Both of them which are using the join operator. Okay, now I come the summary that with having clause that limits the result. Now, having clause always does what? It limits out the results. So if we want to limit out some result on the basis of, look at that, count is greater than or equal to 2. So which have more than 2 invoices. That is very interesting, and we'll just make a different shape of it as well. If I just run that one, so look at that. It will just come up where those vendors which have greater than or equal to 2. Look at that. This TX Dallas has 2. So if I just come here and I take it this away, and if I just run this one now, so equal to 2, or if I just take away equal to, greater than 2. And then that, you look at that, greater than 2. So it will not include the Texas one. Why? Because it is just coming up with the greater than 2. If I just say, so you see San Francisco has 3. So if I say greater than 3, right? So let's see that San Francisco will not be included now, because all those have been logged out which are less than 3 or maybe equal to 3, because we have mentioned just less than 3 or greater than 3, right? So that's very interesting, and we can just find out interestingly how many values are there. With search condition and having clause can have a search condition as well, where average invoice total is greater than 500. So it means that having clause is not that that it's a very versatile type of values, and it can just check about those values which are, look at that, which can have a condition in that. So if it is just going and it's running through the condition, and it says United Parcel Service, for example, it has 9 quantity and their invoice average is here. So invoice average is greater than 500 for all those people. You see that? And if I say, for example, 1500, of course, right now we have 19 rows. If I run that one, you see that now I have got 10 rows because there are certain people who have got amount above 1500. Whether it is in one command, in one thing or multiple things, but it has multiple values, so to speak. Right now, a summary query with search condition in where clause. We can have a where clause search condition over here as well, and we'll see the difference between what is the difference between these two. So now if you see that the search condition is in example 11. Now the search condition is in where, not in the having. So look at that. So again, it is exactly producing almost the same result, 20 rows, which have above 500. Now let's go and see the difference between these two. So, look at that description where you include a where clause in the select statement that uses grouping and aggregate. Such condition is applied before the rows are grouped and aggregate are calculated. That way, only the rows that satisfy the search condition are grouped. Are you guys getting that one? When where clause is used in condition with condition, that statement that uses grouping and aggregate, the search condition is applied before the rows are grouped. So before grouping and after grouping, that's a very interesting thing. Before they are grouped and aggregates are calculated, that way only the rows that satisfy the search condition are grouped and summarized. But when we are using having, condition in having, look at that. When you include a having clause in a select statement that uses grouping and aggregate, the search condition is applied after the rows are grouped and the aggregates are calculated. That way only that groups that satisfy the search condition are included in the result set. Would you guys remember that? This might be a tricky question, little question. What is the difference between putting the condition in where and putting the condition in having? So remember, if putting in the condition in where, that it is the condition is applied before the grouping, and if it is in having, it would be condition will be applied after the after grouping. Make sense, everyone? This might be a tricky, maybe an exam question somewhere. A having clause can only refer to a column included in the select or group by clause. A where clause can refer to any column in the base tables. That's another very important difference. So these are the differences here. A having clause can only refer to a column included in the select. Having cannot refer to any of the columns which are even not there in select or group by. On the other hand, a where clause can refer to any column. It means that where clause can just go to any column and refer to any column, but having is particularly dependent on select. That's a very important one, and I will try to trick that in an exam question, maybe somewhere that you will be able, you have to find out what is the problem with that query, right? So aggregate function can only be coded in having clause. A where clause can't contain aggregate function. Another difference, that these are very interesting differences, that an aggregate function can only be coded in having clause. Having, aggregate function can only come in aggregate. Like, in that where we have having, but in where clause, we cannot use the aggregate functions. Now come to the 71. A summary query with compound composition in the having clause. Now compound composition, there might be ending and logical conditioning over there. Let's go run that and then we'll discuss that one. Example 12. Look at that. We have compounding having invoice date between these two dates. So we get nothing. We get 0 rows and it has just, executed, and it has, we get 0 rows in between that one. So if I say one, so from 1st January 2016 to 31st January, there is nothing we have found in 2016. So if I say, for example, from 2015, 1st January 2015 to 1st January 2016, it still does not give anything. Invoice date count is greater than 1. Like, it does not give anything, count is greater than 1. Okay, so it might not be producing that one. So let's see that. Okay, so let's come back over here. So now it's basically, it should generally produce this result. Maybe if I was just thinking invoice quantity 2, it should come here. Why it is not generating greater than 100? Okay, invoice total greater than 100. Hmm. Okay, let's find out the invoice dates here. Select invoice date from invoices. I'll just find out what are the invoice dates, right? To check that one. Okay, you see that I've got just 19 to 19, and that also is of like from 19, October 19th. So I'll just, try that one out. If I say 2019, and it has to be, for example, 1/1/19 to 10 to 19. For example, let's do that. Oh, it's running two of them. I just want to run this one. See that? Now we are getting that one. So there was no invoices over there. So it says that where count is equal to 1 and in this date. So date range was not correct for my database and for yours as well. Right? So this is the database we have settled it now. Because the second and third condition having clause in this query include aggregate function, they must be coded having clause. The first in either having or where clause. The second statement in the figure, for example, shows this condition coded in where clause. Note that the query returns the same result set regardless of where your code is conditioned. So how do you know where to code such condition? In general, I think your code will be easier to read if you include the such condition in the having clause. If on the other hand, you prefer to code non-aggregate such conditions in where clause. So again, that's exactly the same. So if you look at that one, like having is basically having that condition, the complete condition and in the having. Why? Because it's basically if you see that because that is the second statement figure, for example, shows condition where. So we will be just coding that in that way. Since a such condition in where clause is applied before the rows are grouped, while a such condition in having clause isn't applied until the after the grouping. You might express a performance advantage by coding all such condition in having. So it's a little debate that where should we place that conditions, like the coding the such conditions, whether it should be having, whether it should be what. So they are saying that however SQL Server takes care of this performance issue of you if you optimize the query to do that in the performance as long as that does not change the logic of your query. As a result, you can code such conditions wherever they result in the most readable code without worrying about the system performance. So this is a very important point that SQL Server takes care of it, even though we have just talked about that if we put a query inside search condition, it is executed. You remember that before grouping, and when we are doing it that in having, it is executing after having and after grouping. But SQL query just takes care of that one, and you should not to be too much worried about that. That might be another little exam question that might ask you. Okay, the same summary query with a where clause. If we have a where clause and we are putting the condition in the where clause, look at that. And again, we don't have the days, so we are just not checking that. So the same can be done with that one. This way you can use and or operator to code compound statement such condition having clause just as you can in where clause. If a search condition includes an aggregate function, it must be coded in having clause. Otherwise, so again, remember, this is very important point. That might be a tricky question there, that I might have a where condition and I use an aggregate function. So where cannot have an aggregate function, while as our having can have any like aggregate functions. That does not really matters. You know what I mean? So in most cases, your code will be easier to read if you code all your search conditions in the having clause, but you can code non-aggregate search condition in the where clause if you prefer. I hope that makes sense. Now here comes the server extensions, SQL Server extensions, roll-up, cube, and grouping sets, operators, and overclock. These are very interesting. You can use roll-up operator to add one or more summary rows to a result set that uses grouping and aggregates. That's quite interesting thing. Let's go to the next slide. A summary query with final summary row with roll-up operator. Roll-up will roll up, add the values. Let's do that. It is example 13, by the way, right? It is example 13. And let's see that with roll up. Look at that. So what roll up will do, right? That you will see that it will just, try to just summarize everything or sum up these ones. So invoice total and invoice total and invoice count. It just rolls them up. Roll up means it will add that one as well. You guys getting that one? If I just take this roll up away from here, it says that, see that group by vendor ID, it is just group by vendor ID and there is no, so, but if I just come here and I just introduce with roll up, look at that. Then we have 34 lines over here. And now if you see that, we have 35 rows and the 35th row has no vendor ID, of course, and it has rolled up all them. Are you guys getting that? Roll up is just, it will just, add all those ones. And we can just, do that group by roll up vendor ID as well, like that. With summary row for each grouping level. And if we want to group each level, look at that. This is very interesting. Every level will be grouped as together. Look at that. It is just, trying to roll that up, everything over here. And if you look at that, like it's basically, that we are vendor state in IA, NJ group by vendor state. So look at that. First of all, NJ comes and here it rolls up this NJ. And it says that New Jersey is, for example, it has 4. Do you guys see that? And it is doing that at the level of vendor state. So look at that. Then we have IA, for example, and it says that these two are in IA. And collectively, this 2 and 4 makes it 6. Make sense, everyone? This is rolling up by that particular vendor state. Wonderful. Thank you, Hitesh, your feedback. Okay, summary query with final summary row with using cube operator. There's a cube operator as well. Select vendor ID count history from invoice count, send invoice total as invoice total from invoices with cube. Look at that with cube. What does that do? With cube, look at that. So in the end, it is just, doing that one. But what is the difference between the cube and that one? So let me show you. Between roll up and cube. See what is the difference? Why it basically really matters in SQL Server. Oh. Look at that. In SQL Server, both rollup and cube are subclause of the group by clause and are used in conjunction with aggregate functions to produce summary reports. It helps to generate multiple group sets using that one. So now it's basically, SQL Server provides 2 powerful extensions, cube and rollup. So now see that roll and cube. Here we are grouping to consider supermarket database having tables, orders, customers, employees. Now we are going to calculate the total subtotal by rollup and cube. So you see that rollup column 1, column 2, column 3, cube column 1, column 2, column 3. So what it does, just give me a second. Showing that. Okay, it's just giving that advertisement. So look at that. So what is the grouping sets will come out if that is a roll up? Column 1, column 2, column 3, column 1, column 2, and column 3. This just rolls up like this. While we are using cube, what it does, look at that. Column 1, column 2, column 3, column 1, column 2, column 2, column 3, column 1, column 3, column 1, column 2, and column 3. Do you guys understand? This is just like, those binary conversions, binary, options that here it will just give group all 3, then 2 of them, right? And then making these 2 with the third one or the third one with that, like that. But cubing does what? Column 1, column 2, column 3, then column 1, column 2, column 3. So if you look at the last result that we are having, if you look at that, So column 1, column 2, column 3, it is just, doing that. And if you look at that right now, in the end, it is just giving that all of them. But if you look over here, 34 is 2, 37 is 3. So it's just, rolls up like this. So it cube rolls up like this. So cube will just, first of all, these 3 columns, then 2, then the other 2 and the 3. All those combinations, it will apply on that one, right? And here comes another one, not only that one. So we have the cube over here, and then we have got each set of groups. So if we are just doing that for the each set of groups, you'll see that it will return all those values in the each set of groups. Look at that. They say here that like now I'll just execute that one. So look at that. It is just rolling that up and on that basis. So in the group by vendor state, vendor city with cube, vendor state and vendor city. So vendor state, this is first of all the state one. And then again, this is on all the state one. And then it comes to cities, Washington, Fairfield, East Brunswick. It is just showing all those 3 fields over there. And it's showing that these are the countries and they are there. Are you guys understanding with cube? With cube is basically just doing that. And if I just come here, and for that matter, if I just copy this one, and I say example 16B, for example, I'll call it 16B because I'm just making a little change. So if I just come here and I say with roll, with, is that with roll up? We say with roll up. Yes, sorry, with roll up, with roll up. Right. So if I just say with roll up, so see that roll is not recognized group by option. So it does not work apply on the group by. Group by the roll up does not work. Rather for roll up, we're just using with Q. So that's another difference, and that might have I mentioned in that one over there. So it just does that. So now if I come back to there, maybe I have just mentioned there one. A summary query with 2 groups. If we have 2 groups, we can just we can make the grouping sets like this, and those grouping sets will be now initiated. And again, I've not mentioned that over there, but I'll just mention that over here. Example 17. Let's come to 17 and do that. It has 2 groups now, and let's run that. Look at that. Now what it is that NJ and IA 4 and 2. It has just rolled it has just done that grouping sets together. And then Washington, Fairfield, and East Brunswick, it just shows that one over here. So that's quite an interesting one. With composite grouping, there can be double grouping as well, or composite grouping. You can just maybe just run that commands later on, because these are just self-explanatory. So a summary query with a group that uses roll-up operator. If there is a grouping set and we can do the roll-up operator, it will just try to roll them up. And then we have syntax of over clause, the last one, the over clause. The over clause does what? It actually just takes out the result, and it just partitions by the result by some particular columns. So look at that. If last, I will be just using this as the last example. Example 18. And if I just come here, look at that. It says that select invoice date of optional sum, invoice total over, partition by invoice date as date total, partition by invoice date as date count. And so you see that. Look at that. Invoice number, invoice date, and invoice total. These 3 are coming from here. And now date total, it is partitioning the sum of invoice total with the date. Count over partition by invoice date count. This one. Average over. This is very interesting query that is. So over actually does what? If you want to go through a particular one, it will just, give those values over there. So this is our 30th one, and this is one, a query that calculates cumulative total and moving average. Again, moving average. So just moving results and moving average. That's maybe, I thought that will last, but this will be last maybe. Or maybe there is one more good example. So it's a moving average. It will just run the moving average as well. So moving average, order by invoice date as moving average. So moving average means it is just telling 38.12, and then then this one is added, then the total is 3853 and 1926. Average goes down, average goes up, something like that. So it is just, doing that by moving average. Right. So last but not least, the same query group by terms, a terms ID. If you just put that instead of that one, if you put that in the terms ID, it would just, do that with respect to a particular term, and it will just, that will just, do that particular things, right? So that really sums up this PowerPoint as well. So we will have these two, and I would upload these things in our week 9 folder. And so week 9 is generally considering as, the locks, which we'll discuss later on. Okay, so in week 9, I'll just upload these all things over here. Let's create and upload that one. I'll close this one. Any questions from anyone, please let me know, and I'll be happy to answer that. And this file as well, I'll just add that. Oh, it will ask me to save that file. Yes, I want to save that, but where? Oh, it is asked me. Yes. Week 9, part 2. Hitesh, any questions from your side, maybe, or anyone? I'll upload files here. And I'll just go there and study courses, and then spring 2024. And codes. These two codes and the lecture file. Okay, Hitesh, you don't have any questions. Wonderful. And this AP database is in databases, right? By the way, remember that. This AP database, the file that I shared, it is for the recording as well. This create AP is that was there, right? So you have got the database over there. All right, so this very much sums up our today's lecture. Thank you very much, all of you, for joining in. I would like all of you to just put a parting message, thanks, or something that shows me how many of you were active over here. And I know that only 2 of you were active. I don't know if about the rest of them. Shahana, thank you. I know that Shahana and Hitesh were active.